Brad Wall has been arguing that the Senate should be abolished. He does not agree with Robert Giz at all. But is that now impossible in the wake of the court's decision? Let's find out. Brad Wall, good morning and welcome back to the House.
Happy to be on the House. Thanks, Evan.
All right. What is your reaction to what the Supreme Court said about any kind of changes to the Senate?
Thailand, Antigua, Bahamas, Barbados, Belize, Burkina Faso, Fiji, Grenada, Jamaica, Jordan, St. Lucia, Trinidad, Tobago, and the Dominion of Canada. These are countries that have wholly appointed upper chambers, unelected upper chambers, with no prospects for change. And I think yesterday's decision by the Supreme Court, I certainly respect it. So I'm not arguing the decision, but I'm saying that the implications of the decision is that a chance for meaningful change, and for us that has always meant equality. That's why we moved to the abolition position. We thought that was slightly more doable than a Triple E Senate. But meaningful change, and certainly abolition, is just on a de facto basis never going to happen.
Why? But this is what I don't understand. Here you who want to abolish, you say it's never going to happen. The Prime Minister came out and said most Canadians don't support the Supreme Court decision. They want it changed. Well, if you want it changed, talk to the provinces, get 7 provinces and 50% of the population, get unanimity. It's possible. It's just not possible unless you put in the work.
As someone who's done just a little bit of work, and maybe not a lot, we have other priorities in Saskatchewan and the Senate, I am just of the view, come to the view that it is an impossibility. Part of the reason is that it's not abolish or not abolish. There's a third position, and then within that third position, there's 4 or 5 different variations. You know, that's the challenge. You can't even sort of agree on the question first in terms of being able to move on to let the country to decide on that question in a referendum. So a referendum might pass. Let's say a referendum to abolish gets this 53-54% of Canadians. But I can just promise you, Evan, you're going to have a province or 2 or 3 that disagree.
PEI, we have Premier Giz on. He won't do it because they want the geographic balance.
Right.
Fair enough.
And Robert is a very good friend, but we disagree on this. And I'm just saying that we're not going to see, and the abolition can't happen, and meaningful change can't happen. We're stuck with this.
Again, far be it from me to see the kind of defeatism in your voice, Premier. I've rarely heard that. But why not just talk? Why can't the Premier gather the provinces? I know he's not a great fan of doing that, but gather everyone and get in a room and hammer out some agreement on term limits, on elections, something like that. Get 750, why not?
The extraordinary amount of energy that would need to go into that on all parties' side, and it would be disproportionate to the priorities each of us has as premiers, and I'm sure that the Prime Minister has, just because there's no clear up or down question. It's not abolition or keep, it's abolition, keep, and then some want to reform, and some are happy with modest reforms like term limits and elect them once, and they never have to face election again, and some want full-on, Triple E, and the amount of energy and resource that it would take on the part of all the parties involved, including the Prime Minister, I'm not sure that it's worth it.
So what do you want the federal government to do now?
Well, I don't think there's really anything for the federal government to do. I mean, I said at the end of my statement yesterday that I guess one way that the Senate goes away is that all Prime Ministers and those who aspire, those who are aspirants to be to 24 Sussex in the future agree that they're just going to stop appointing senators, and over the years it just empties out. Obviously, there's a bit of glibness in that, I freely admit. Short of that, I don't think there's anything that can be done.
You had a law that you introduced. It was repealed. Was a bill to allow Saskatchewan people to elect a senator. Once you elect them, they do have some legitimacy conferred upon them. What's wrong with that?
Well, if you have a more legitimate Senate, but it's still biased against the regions. And, Evan, as you know, most federations take the opportunity to have their upper house as a balance to their lower house, the lower house being a rep by a pop institution loosely, the upper house then having that equal unit representation.
Right.
We didn't do that in Canada. We don't even have that in the Senate. 24 senators for all of Western Canada, 24 for the province of Ontario, 24 for the province of Quebec, for example, and I think 30 for Atlantic Canada. There is a bias against, certainly I can speak for Western, or at least Saskatchewan as a part of Western Canada, there's a bias against the regions here, and I don't want that bias legitimized in any way.
I got to leave it there, Premier. But thanks for your time this morning, as always. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Evan. Appreciate it.